hosted by myself and, of course, the incredible Kevin Turnbull from Los Angeles and the UK, along with Debbie Holmes-Evans, who's here with a guest for us this week on behalf of Double DV Business. Debbie, nice to have you back.
Hi.
Now, Debbie, you're here because a certain person asked you to be here. Who was it that asked you to be here? Because it wasn't Kevin and me.
No, it was Mr. Motl.
The one and only Blair Motl, who I've managed to give the largest title ever below. Now, a rumour has it that Blair Motl is the most unsuccessful dog trainer. Is that true?
You know, I was thinking that's initially what I was saying, or maybe just not quite there yet. I haven't figured it out.
Because whilst that's not going to be one of the subjects we intend to talk about,
Yeah.
I bet many people who have had new dogs know there is a period of transition. So, Blair, how far into that transition are you?
Well, we had the 4-month-old. That was pretty sweet. Tons of energy, jumping around, so cute, soft fur, and then would crash and looks cute while they're doing it. Well, somewhere along, right around the 6-month mark, it turned into a burst of energy, and then a burst of energy, and now I can jump on everything and get my paws on the countertop. So it is. I found one thing that has more energy than I do.
That's probably where we should kick into the show. Before we talk about business passion today, and ask, is it an illusion? You know, is it real? Right? Tell us a little bit about what you get up to. And we've got this long, massive scroll on the screen still. So Blair, what do you do for a living?
What do I do for a living to keep myself busy? There's a whole lot of things I do. My most passionate thing is building. And so whether that building is, we're working on another property right now that's actually going to be an axe throwing venue. Not my business. I'm just creating the place. The beauty of that one is if it fails, then I have my own personal axe throwing venue. So that's a fun one right now. On the business side, the one that's making the money, on the payroll, we are just exploding right now, working with the different tax credits and the stimulus and jumping in anywhere we can to help local businesses out. What's been really kind of fun like that is I realized a couple months ago that we're really lucky right now to be this busy. And it's allowed us to grow. And as we're growing, we're kind of changing the way we're working and having just a lot of successes right now with good team building.
So just to clarify, if anyone here has an axe to grind, we can come to your premises and throw axes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Brilliant.
I mean, that's a fun one to say right there.
Kevin, have you got any axes to grind?
As you know, I've got plenty of axes to grind at the moment, but I don't want to wash my dirty axes in public.
No, absolutely. So, question to you then, Blair and Debbie. What is business passion? What do you think it is?
Well, am I allowed to throw my challenge in first then?
We have to ask Kevin.
Well, it's actually a great topic because a lot of leaders, I think, are kind of passionless. You know, they think it's a dry and dusty thing, and it's can be done by the numbers, and you know, it's a bit of a choreography. But actually, I'm a great believer in passion because I think it drives motivation, it drives the ability to weld teams together, and if leaders don't have passion, then generally I find there's something wrong with the organization.
But is it not a misuse of the word passion? That's my challenge to this. It's like many words that have become maybe cliched in the business world. Is it that you need other qualities to actually be passionate? So it's not necessarily that you are passionate. You become passionate by doing other things and having different motivators.
Well, let's ask Blair. So, Blair, are you passionate?
Yeah. And so, well, the idea of business passion, I want to say, what is the context we use for passion? Is that, are we saying it's a feeling? Because what I'm kind of thinking of is passion is more, it's like you have a business, you have to have drive to run a business and to be a leader. And then a passion, I think, is some kind of range or some kind of a zone along that path where you've really hit your stride. And you've connected with what your task is, the way you work, and all in all, there's an overall sense of just being really fulfilled by it. And that fulfillment, I think, creates the energy, the passion. So I don't think it's something that you can take off the shelf and build. I think it's a result of doing things right.
I think I broadly agree with that, Blair. Absolutely, and I understand what you're saying, Debbie. About it can be a bit cliched, but to me, passion is just about the enthusiasm. It's about the energy. It's about a kind of emotional involvement in the business, rather than being passionless, where it's just a kind of a kind of physical activity of some sort. But if you don't have that kind of that emotional tie into the business, I just think you can miss out. So that's what I think.
Well, you know me, I like to challenge the use of words. So if we can use a different word, then that's what I would prefer, because I think passion is, and again, for me, it's a combination of many. You have to acquire passion. And I think I have to agree with Blair in context. It's all relative to context as well.
Yeah, no, it is. But and a lot of these words, you're absolutely right, Debbie, get kind of misused and hacked around. I mean, one of my non-favorites is authentic. When people say I'm going to be authentic, it usually means I'm going to be selfish. And I can't kind of separate that concept because of that. Although I understand that authentic means, I'm going to be real and I'm going to be this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
But sometimes people misuse it, and that always gets up my nose.
I agree.
So I think passion has to be part of something. So, if you take a classic framework, Blair, right? So ideally, a framework like this allows you to get around something. But if you haven't got something like this and you're just going through motions, then I think the opposite of emotion tie-in is motionless. There's no energy. There's no, as you said, Blair, there's no drive, is there? So would you say you're more driven than passion?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because whether I like it or not, I've got to keep moving. And I'll find myself just doing projects around the house to, that being in motion is calming for me. But then sometimes I'll get in a zone, I'm out working on a sculpture, sometimes I'm just welding, organizing. And then sometimes when you just get in that groove, get in that zone, those are passionate sculptures. You can see when they're all done in the end, just they look like they're moving, standing still. Versus other times when you don't, and they just look awkward and there's no balance to it. And
can we clarify something then? So you are a qualified accountant, is that true?
Say that again.
You are a qualified accountant.
Yes, I do have that degree hanging on the wall.
You're a tax specialist.
I've done that, 20 some years, and gladly not doing it anymore.
You successfully have built a high-performing payroll business.
That's in the works right now, yep.
You have houses that you flip.
Yep, almost done with those for the season.
You design...
sculptors.
What's that, Debbie?
He's a sculptor.
Oh, no, we're coming to that. You design event premises as part of partnerships.
That's the area. I can't take credit for what her and her family does.
No, but
they're rock stars in their own right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But you also, in addition to that, are part of building restorations in East Dundee, the new offices, and other things like that. But having said all of that, Kevin and Debbie, you're right, Debbie. You also find the time to sculpt.
Yeah, but so out of all those different things, I think that the accounting was a skill set that I learned I wasn't passionate about it. I was good at it. I could do it. To me, it was organizing and, just quantifying, qualifying things. But then once I took that skill and take that into payroll, it's not, to me, it's like some of the structure that I learned, the thought process that I learned. And then I put that in the right thing with payroll. Then that's cool. That's exciting. That's fun. But when I go into work on a renovation on a house, that's the artist in me. That's the sculptor trying to, envision what's there. Don't bring the accountant with me inside that door. I don't do budgets on the renovations. I don't add things up as long as I'm going. I do that at the end. So I think that how you apply those skills and the things you had in the front part, those were my base things, the core things. But everything you started listing towards the end, those were the passion projects. Those were the fun ones.
See, that's really interesting, isn't it? So, which out of all of your passionate things, which trait's the most dominant? Is it your artistic?
The building trait.
The building trait. Okay. It's interesting, isn't it? All those different hats you wear. Yeah.
Well, for a while I was building a real estate portfolio. And then you're going in and you're building houses and you're doing renovations there. On the payroll side, that wasn't the first business I've been a part of in my life. So part of it's a formula, going through the steps, going through the motions I learned. And I want to say it's probably around year 4. That's when the passion really hit. That's when I had the ability to do things. For the first 3 years of the business, it owned me.
Yeah.
And is there something in that? Sorry, Blair, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, once you get over that hump and you get your first couple really qualified employees, your life changes. You can actually now get to the point where you're running your business. And I think that, again, is where some passion comes in.
That's really good. Go ahead, Lily.
Now, I was just going to say what's really interesting and kind of what's gone into my head is if you think about where we're at globally from COVID and coming out of this, we've got a lot of people are building passion businesses, therefore things that they may have done as a hobby or something that they've enjoyed doing, which challenged because as any startup, you have to have some business acumen. You've got to have the support, the network, a coach, a mentor. You've got to have the backup. And actually those passion projects can fall down very, very quickly and become financially unviable. Mm-hmm. So it's also the question is that at what point, because I think it was an interesting conversation that says, actually most people start with passion first. So this is a passion project. I really enjoy doing this. And then the logic comes in after, which actually by the time the logic's in, it's too late. It's normally failed. 97% of businesses fail. So it's actually passion then becomes something like a slow ember burn. It builds momentum as you learn the skill and the experience. I think it's just a really interesting interpretation from your perspective, because actually that's sustainable. If you're consistent learning and then get passionate about something, then that to me is sustainable. It's when it's not sustainable, when it's all fire, go, but there's no structure, no logic, no process, it falls over.
Well, that's interesting. We work with small business every day, and there are 2 types of things that you get. You get the highly educated MBA who studied the way to start a business, and they can start them, they grow them fast. Those are going to be bigger companies. They're probably also going to be a little more, a little sterile, not necessarily have the same feel to them. Mm-hmm. But the majority of small business, I mean, Sean had come up with the number at one point that said like 75% of businesses are small businesses, the 10 to 15 and under. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those don't necessarily come from somebody who went to school to learn how to do business, to create something. A lot of those are misfits. The people that might have gotten out of school, went and worked for somebody for 4 or 5 years and just realized, I don't fit in this environment. This isn't me. And what are you going to do? It's not a matter of like successes where you go out on your own. Sometimes it's just, I got to find what fits me. And yeah, you see a lot of these businesses are just making a paycheck. Those are a lot of the people where the owner and you're talking directly with them. Whereas the guys who are really making some good money, they tend to be a whole lot more removed from the product. So I would say you probably find more passion, more fulfillment out of those smaller jobs. So even though the people might not be making the big bucks, and you actually don't see as many of them fail because a lot of them don't have alternatives.
Yeah.
They're not going to go get another job. They would rather make less money than go work for somebody else. Now, whether
It's a
that's
great-
drive planning or it's just being stubborn, I don't know.
It's a great observation, Blair, and it almost takes us into the second part of today, which is talking about business commitment. I mean, how do you retain your level of commitment to things? Do you have any things you do, or are you naturally like that?
Well, this is another good one where there's really two sides of it. So I'll start kind of a couple steps removed from it, which was 2008 when we had that crash in the States. I don't know if you guys saw the same stuff over in your area. And we were really concerned that a lot of these people are business owners and businesses are failing. We're going to lose clients. Hey, Mark, how are you?
Good. How you guys doing?
So, well, and Mark's going to be able to back this up. We're talking about 2008 when we saw a lot of businesses, the economic crash. We thought all these businesses were going to go under. And we actually had a remarkably low drop rate when we came to the conclusion that these people didn't have alternatives. Nobody was hiring at that point. You didn't have new things to get into. And so at that point, you have no alternatives. So your commitment is sometimes not always voluntary. It's a matter of the situation. But at the same point, there are some people that want to work 9 to 5, and there's some people that want to accomplish goals.
It's an interesting insight to see, and I guess that's the nature of your work, isn't it? To be able to see lots of clients at any given time and observe. Another one of your talents is to observe patterns, isn't it? As to see patterns that are in play. Let's welcome Mark Sunderland from Boulder, who's usually ahead of the peloton, spinning ahead of the pack. He's come to join us and support Blair, our guest today. Mark, great to see you, my good friend.
Well, thank you.
We've been talking about business passion, and from lots of different perspectives with Blair and with Kevin and Debbie. And we're talking now about commitment. And I do like this whole idea. The business commitment is usually seen more or more noticeable when there isn't an alternative. Debbie and Kevin, what do you think?
Sorry, Debbie, go ahead.
No, go.
I was just going to say this. I think the comparison between culture and business is very compelling. As you said, Blair, that, you might sketch out a sculpture, but once you get into it, you've got the passion kind of hits in, and you drive it in a particular way which seems right, and creatively or whatever it might be. And I think the same is true of business. That you have you might have a framework, you might have a plan, but once you get in there, the passion kind of drives the growth. It drives the direction. It drives creativity in the business. And I know what I'm saying is a little bit clunky, but business is a sculpture.
That's nice. Business is a sculpture for building an artistic impression there, Blair. Debbie, what was you going to say?
I've completely forgotten now. I think one of the things that's interesting is, when we use analogies, I get lost sometimes. So then I was thinking about a sculpture, and the sculpture ends up being a finished product. Now, Blair will be able to challenge me on this one. So is a sculpture ever finished? I.e., because a business is never finished, is it? A business is always in a constant evolution and cyclical process. So, but is a sculpture ever finished from somebody who sculpts?
To me, my sculptures are done, sometimes it might lag on a little longer. I've had some that are sitting in the backyard 5-6 years now, and then I'll pick it up again and kind of finish it. But once it is done, and I know it, you feel it, it just is balanced, I'll never go back to it. If I have other ideas, I'll put those ideas on the next sculpture. I don't want to continue to go back and redo things over and over again. I don't like the maintenance side of things.
Right. So Blair, we talked about your qualifications. Are you a qualified welder?
I'm a qualified garage self-taught welder.
Excellent. I'm going to come round. I want lessons.
Yeah, I mean, they don't teach you how to weld in accounting classes. And I just had a buddy over the other day. you know, and he's kind of learning how to weld himself. And I was like, so have you done the sledgehammer test yet? So what are you talking about? I said, well, I never knew how to test my weld, so I'd get something done and just take a sledgehammer to it and hit it a couple times, and that's how I learned if you can't weld metals together, like you can't put cast iron with something else. So you weld it, and if it takes a hammer, it was good. If not, you know, that's how I learned. And I think a lot of that same thing happens in business. And so I think the real profile of a business owner is sometimes, you know, office misfits. We're fighters, we're scrappers, we're stubborn, we have drive. And sometimes if you get all those things right and you understand your energies and you can relate that back, find a way to relate it to other people and really build a business and be able to react with your staff and create a team. When you hit all those things humming at the right time, I think that's business passion.
Right. Yeah, there's a thing.
That's lovely, Kevin. We are getting some sound interference, but because your smile is so infectious, it doesn't matter. So I think I like that, Kev. You are right. And Blair, I think you stumbled onto something in my notes that you probably didn't even know about, that business commitment needs people commitment. And I loved your narrative there about joining all those parts up. I'm going to ask Mark a quick question. What do you think about business commitment, Mark?
Well, sorry to jump in late, but just, kind of hearing what people are talking about, it leads me back to, going through the businesses that we've worked with, not just back in 08, 09, but also with COVID. And I think, you think about business commitment and you throw passion in there, the survivors, yes, the ones that have survived, have that passion, they have that commitment. More importantly, I think the ones that either suffered or were forced to reinvent themselves, whether they decided to become a welder and use a sledgehammer test to see how good they were getting at that. But that's what, the good business owners were able to pivot because they were committed to their business and they were passionate enough by building a plan and sticking to that plan. Now, a lot of times those plans have to change, but if you've got a plan that you've put in place before, let's call it a framework, and you're passionate about meeting those goals that you've laid out, you've probably been successful somewhere along the way with what you've put in there. So when you have big changes that come along, whether it's of your own doing or forces completely outside of your control, which is what most of us has dealt with in the last 18 months, as well as back in 08 and 09, you're able to revisit your framework, know what you're all about and what you're passionate about and why you're so committed to doing what you're doing and being successful. It makes it a lot easier to pivot a bit. Now, that could be a full reinvention of what you're doing in a lot of cases, but some cases it could be just a reshuffling and of timelines and goals and reevaluating those given the current circumstances. So I think those owners that are committed and know exactly why they're doing what they're doing is key to seeing that through.
So is there something in that? This has many connotations, but to be committed, you also need to have a plan or an understanding of it. Because I think one of the things as a coach and talking to people regularly about their business or about their own plans is that a lot of people talk false commitment. Yeah, I'll do that. Yes, yeah, that's coming your way. Yes. So is it driven by a plan? Is it driven by passion and a drive and an understanding of the business? What? If that's before I even said it. Well done.
I would think it's both. I mean, I think you can have people are passionate about all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm passionate about riding my bike across the country and all kinds of things, but I'm not committed to it as much as I like to be for all kinds of various reasons. But I don't put a plan in place, right? So it's like you can be passionate about something, but until you're truly committed, and I think to be truly committed means you are going to put a plan in place, and you're going to have hope. You're going to have some way of keeping yourself accountable to that plan. I think most people can agree, no matter what they've done in life, whether it's athletic achievements or business achievements or something else, having some kind of an accountability partner or partners is critical, right? Because obviously most of us get in our own way all the time. So unless we have that outside resource to hold us accountable and hold us to our commitments, I think that's where most fail, is they don't have that. So they might have that great passion of something. They may even put it in writing and put a plan together and build out a framework. But if somebody's not there to help them through that, especially when they hit speed bumps along the way, which we always will, I think that's where things can get off the rails a little bit.
Yeah.
And that's where you need to have consulting, Mark, right?
That's correct.
And so coming back to our guest of honor today, Mr. Motl, the Payroll Rockstar, entrepreneur, investor, advisor, coach, friend, and superman, and fully untrained dog trainer that we heard.
Yes.
So, Blair, what do you think about true commitment needing a plan?
I was just wondering, for us, like I said, we have lack of options, but like our crew, the people who work day in and day out to help us build our businesses, like how do we talk about their commitment? I think that sometimes the commitment comes more from the atmosphere than the work. Because how many employees, they've been with you forever, and they're doing the bookkeepers, the payroll processors, they like steady, they like the even going. So their work generally doesn't change for years at a time. But yet there are times when we see their level of commitment change. Their level of engagement changes. Their level of passion does. So it's interesting more to take that aspect of, like, when you talk about commitment, what really makes somebody committed to it?
I think the answer is about building commitment to your people as part of the culture around the framework you were just talking about. So, and I know you do that. So, giving them space to be, I think is going to become more and more important in the future. I was talking to Kurt yesterday about his daughter Alison and how she represents, for lots of reasons, a generation that I think will change the face of leadership in a massive way. And it's given them the space to do that, given them the space to be in, out, more, less. But it still comes down to some old-fashioned truth that I think Kevin would be able to confirm, that without human connection and taking the time to put people commitment as part of what you're doing every day, I think it's much harder, Blair, would be my 2 pence worth. What do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, I think Blair hit the button right earlier on where he says, different people have different commitments. You can be very committed at work, but you want to do 9 to 5. That's different from the normal commitment that you think kind of senior managers are going to have, which is I'm going to work 60 hours a week, because I'm really committed. But both of those are examples of commitment in their own way. And as Blair said, different people have different motivations. 9 to 5 and balancing work and life is very important to many people. Working hard to build a career is a different kind of commitment, and that might be expressed in different ways. Working longer, working harder, going up the greasy pole, whatever you want to call it. But they're all examples of great commitments.
I don't know that term in the U.S.
Okay. Now, I wasn't talking about lap dancing bars again, Blair.
Now, we do have a comment on LinkedIn from Jessica Martin, a fellow Payroll Rockstar that Blair, about commitment is also fueled by genuine purpose. And do you think that plays a massive part with you in your business building?
Yeah, and I think I'm thinking of 3 words right now when you talk about getting that commitment is freedom. So this is relative to our crews: freedom, trust, and structure. And if you have the structure and you trust your employees, then you can give them freedom. And I think once you have that, where they now know what their boundaries are, but you trust them, I think that allows them then, like Jessica's saying, is to find their spot, to find their seat on the bus, their genuine purpose. Otherwise, it's really hard for me to try to put somebody in that spot.
100%. I also like to thank Stuart Mason for stopping by. I think he was just to confirm your last point, but which is great. So two interactive statements there. But coming right back to those 3 words, I want to go to Mark. Mark, what do you think about structure, trust, and freedom?
Well, I just wrote them down, so I liked it. I really liked how you said that, especially when you put it in the order. Especially in an industry like ours, accounting and payroll and stuff like that. I think that's obviously extremely important, but I think it's important in any industry. Once you've shown trust in your people, right? They feel that trust, and I think they become more committed and more passionate about what they're doing for the overall cause. And I think the comment that Jessica had posted about genuine purpose, I think that goes back to, I absolutely 100% agree with that. It goes back to, why are we doing what we're doing in the first place, right? If you haven't figured that out or defined that yet, then you need to do that immediately, right? Because I think if you don't know exactly why you're doing what you're doing, you are going to have days where you're not working 9 to 5, you're working 6 to 10 at night, right? I mean, if you don't know why you're doing that and you don't have that genuine purpose, right? And your people can't see why you're doing it and buy into that purpose themselves to some degree, right? Then you're never going to get that. You're never going to get that trust, right? And if you don't have that trust, I think back to Blair's point, then it gets harder for both ways. Then it gets harder for you as the business owner to allow your employees to have the freedom that most employees these days, especially these days, are looking for in every industry.
I love it, Mark. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, go on, Blair.
Let me throw in here then. I don't think when people try to talk about like a genuine purpose, I don't think that there's some wild, crazy thing where you need to go quit your job, move to the middle of nowhere, sing Kumbaya, and find your inner soul. We talk about the accounting. I didn't like the accounting. I didn't like the tax. I was pretty good at both of those. But then I found payroll, and that little difference there where it's more structural, more setting something up. It's still all the same number, same tax law. But that right there, I've now hit my genuine purpose. And so I think when you talk about that freedom, and we're like, oh, we're just giving them freedom within the business, sometimes that's all it takes.
I think that's a fabulous observation, and we're going to just put Blair literally in the spotlight, Debbie. I'm just going to bring Debbie down one there and pop Kevin to the top of my screen. So for the last
let me get all pretty then.
Absolutely. Put on your best TV face.
Yeah, if I'm in the spotlight now.
You're absolutely in the spotlight. So,
I hope you're not driving.
Wrong side of the car, Mark.
Mark, you missed it before, and I said if this is going to be an authentic Dave Evans and Debbie podcast, I got to do it from my vehicle.
That's true. That's true.
So, before we put a question to Blair, for all of our CONSULTERVATION regulars, we've been talking about business passion. We've been talking about business commitment. We shared about Blair's ability to be an unsuccessful dog trainer. And Debbie and Kevin joined in the conversation about what is passion today. And it's usually wrapped around something that's happening over time. If you just joined in a minute ago, we've been talking about 3 real golden nuggets. Put structure into your business, build trust in your people, and if they're doing the right work, they'll have the freedom to do it in the best way suitable to everybody in the organization. So, to finish off this bonus episode of CONSULTERVATION, let's go to each person one at a time for them to ask Kevin. Not Kevin, that's not fair. Sorry, Kev. I thought you were going to put you on the bus there, sir. And to ask Blair in the spotlight a bonus question. So, Blair, who would you like to ask you first?
Geez, I want to end with Debbie because I know she'll be the softest and nicest. So, other than that, let's go top down on the screen. So, Dave, you're up first.
So, Blair, what's an interesting fact that most people watching won't know about you?
An interesting fact that our team building exercise on Friday is going to be pumpkin carving with power tools. So,
that's awesome.
Picture that, we'll have 15 people down by the river. Bookkeepers, payroll, accountants, tax people, carving pumpkins with power tools. And I don't know about putting power tools in white-collared hands, but...
I don't know if workers' comp will cover that.
Oh
true,
man, that's a
Mark.
good call.
So, let's go to Kevin. Kevin, a question for Blair Motl, sir.
Well, Blair, I think you're inspirational, and what I'm taking away from this is you're welding numbers together to get the right results. But you can't be that much of a superhuman. So, what are you most scared of?
Oh, most scared of not being prepared for something. You know, I like to have two ways to do all these different things. I'm scared. Geez, there's always got to be relationship issues there. You know, scared about are the people around me gonna approve of what you're doing? One other thing I'm scared of, I don't know, having to cook for myself.
That's interesting. So let's go to Mark. Before we do, I think Jessica Martin, who's listening with us, wants to join you for the Power Tool Pumpkins. So take a video. Maybe Payroll Vault Central can join in at some point. So let's go back to the questions. Next up is Mark.
Well, I might have missed this from the beginning, but why are you a failed dog trainer?
I'm not a failed dog trainer because I got perseverance and we're not at the end of it yet. But man, all the things that we learn in business about structure and freedom and trust and all that, none of it works with the puppy. Like nothing works. It's like it's Russian roulette. And so I'm learning more patience. And at that time, when you want to yank that leash, you got to find your moment of zen. And
there's a moment
it's just not a great.
Is that analogous to hiring and training a baby, or not a baby boomer, but what do you call these, the Gen Xers or whatever, the millennials?
No. And I'll tell you what, on that one, Dave and I have been working for a while on this one. Like 6 months ago, I decided to get rid of the hierarchy, even the thinking of a hierarchy in an office. And we flipped it now to say anybody who works for me and works in this company is equally as important. Now we might have different things that we're good at, and that's the things that we want to be respected for. So we have now said we got to let each person figure out what their specialty is and find something in the office that they're really good at. And then when they get in those zones, then they thrive. So I think that by cutting down the hierarchy, getting rid of the 1950 stereotypes of, Mad Men, how you run a business, gotten rid of that one, and the training is getting people up to speed is so much quicker than it's ever been. It's the people are all training themselves now, rather than me being the boss who knows everything, sitting with them besides their desk with the beaks breathing down their neck.
So just to conclude, Blair, that what you just said is some really great insights. There's another podcast right there. But before we lose the thread of what you did just say about flipping the hierarchy, that's and the process you've applied, I must also pull out the answer to Mark's question. So maybe Mark, what he's going to do is flip the training with his dog.
Yeah.
And that's before we acknowledge that most dogs take after their owner, which is another clue. So let's come to Debbie.
Very true, very true.
Yeah, your dog sounds like it's as driven as you are. So Debbie, do you have a question, soft or not, to ask Blair Motl?
Well, Blair, that I'm normally very PC and I like to challenge people. So I'm actually going to ask you a question which is not PC, but is also going to challenge you. So you said you started an axe throwing business. Who would you like to throw an axe at?
Oh, geez. Well, first of all, I'm not starting a business. I'm just building a venue out for the people to go in there and throwing axes out. And I would like to throw an axe at whoever is the leader of the IRS. They are another one.
Not condoning any level of violence here whatsoever.
Oh, no.
Just making sure we're agreeing to that.
COVID has turned them into puppies. There is no structure anymore. There is no predictability. There is no routines. You call them and they won't even respond to you. So whoever turned the IRS into a puppy is who I'm going to throw that axe at.
Now, then, of course, he's not saying that he wants to throw axes at puppies, just for anyone who's listening. It's
True.
all about the IRS. It's all about the IRS. So, Blair, just to thank you so much for being on the show today. It's been a fabulous, fabulous conversation. And as usually on Consultervation, super diverse. So thank you for your time, Blair.
Not a
Lovely
problem.
to see you, Blair. See you soon.
Good to
Thanks,
see you guys
Blair.
again.
Also, a big thank you to Mark for dropping in from Sunderland Group in Boulder, Kevin Turnbull from RLCLA and over in the UK at the moment, and of course, the COO of RLC Global who keeps it all working and moving, Debbie Halls-Evans, winner of the Taste UK, the one and only champion herself. Thanks for being on the show, Debbie. I've been Dave Evans. This has been Consultervation. We've been doing all things business passion, business commitment, business building, and you heard it here first. Get the right structure, get the right trust, and you and your team can have freedom too. This has been Consultervation. Every success with your learning.